The evening sun blazed an array of yellow and orange as light clouds moved in. A pale yellow Pegasus hummed as she carried a blue messenger bag on her back. Fluttershy trotted along a pathway to a local forest. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small carrot with her mouth, the carrot dangling a few green strings at the top.
"Oh, bunnies and squirrels and all kinds of my other friends, come and get it."
She playfully tossed the treat a few feet away, where the forest critters scampered to reach a piece. As Fluttershy moved through the tree, she tossed out a bunch of berries, small leafy plants, and other goodies for the animals. They eventually began to follow her, dashing from brush to brush and tree to tree in pursuit of food. The yellow Pegasus reached a small clearing in the forest with few bushes and some sunlight.
"Little friend, I have a gift for you."
She stepped towards a family of squirrels whose eyes widen in fear and bewilderment as they scamper away.
"Oh, well, you can have this."
Fluttershy tossed a small assortment of nuts in front of a doe. It sniffed the nuts, backing away carefully into the trees, disappearing.
"Sure you want this, don't you, my furry?"
The yellow pony offered a rabbit a last bit of food, and like the other creatures, it ran away in fear. Fluttershy tensed. She didn't want this to happen. Then they remembered the last time. Fluttershy shook herself at this thought. Of course they didn't remember that, otherwise they wouldn't have followed her in the first place. But why had they rejected her gifts? She shuffled with nervousness. If they haven't remembered, those animals will forgive her, right? The Pegasus' legs stiffened. Her hooves were glued to the ground, unmoving. The remaining animals had backed away, their abandon beginning to cut away at something inside her. A small flame started in her.
"Are you all right, my sweeties?"
Fluttershy's voice had become more worried and at the same time harsher.
Come out, wherever you are."
She opened her pouch and pulled out a large glistening object. She stood on her hind legs, her fragile hooves began to lift off the ground, her wings flapping. The flame began to spread into an eternal wildfire. Her cord of sanity snapped as she slipped on two metal cuffs, both with sharp scalpels attached to them so that she could hold them. Fluttershy's eyes turned a dark scarlet.
"I'm gonna find you, you little friends. Just you wait."
With that she dashed into the forest instantly, slashing away at every branch and slicing every plant. A nearby chubby chipmunk dashed away, making little progress. For a split second it made eye contact with Fluttershy, but a split second was all she needed. She rocketed towards the chipmunk, pinning it to the ground.
"You're gonna be my best friend, and so will all your other friends."
The Pegasus stabbed its throat, and blood spluttered out of the puncture wound. Some of the blood squirted onto Fluttershy's face, blinding her as she hacked away at its esophagus. The chipmunk stopped squirming and remained still. Its eyes glazed over, and Fluttershy grinned maliciously. Dirt and leaves were tangled in her hair, and her chest and face were dripping wet with crimson blood. Real hatred fogged her eyes from feeling sympathy, from crying, from stopping her killing spree. She took the little critter by its limp neck and stuffed it into her bag. A small fawn crossed her path as she tackled it, biting its back as it squealed and kicked in horror. Fluttershy tore off patches of fur from its back and wrestled the deer onto its back. A sharp and sudden snap echoes across the forest, and the deer lay panting, half of a jagged and splintered broken rib cut through a large amount of its skin. Blood squirted from the wound, now coating her teeth and her eyes. More of the crimson red liquid sank into her hair, and Fluttershy roared in rage. She picked the deer up, standing on her two hind hooves, and swung the deer around her. It slammed into a tree, moaning horribly and shuddering. It laid arched and did not move. Satisfied, the filthy and bloody pony smiled, this smile even more crooked and insane than her last one. She hauled the deer over her back, coating her flanks and cutie mark in blood. The blood distorted the gleeful pink butterflies into torturous, evil monsters. Multiple times Fluttershy stabbed and strangled the forest critters, and many times did the moan of the animals ring out from a spot in a doomed forest, as well as a homicidal laugh and a scream even the murderous pony didn't know she could create. With each kill she became more coated in blood, more horrifying, and especially more evil. The pony suddenly spotted in a nearby brown little foal. He was a young Pegasus, and he was happily fluttering through the trees, oblivious to any of the death screams from nearby. With pure insanity in her thoughts, Fluttershy levitated herself off the ground, carefully brushing by each tree until she got behind one less than 3 feet away from the fold. The now scarlet red pony roared a battle cry and swung her dead deer at the young pony. He cringed, startled for a second, then yelled out in pain as he hit the forest floor, the breath knocked out of him by a battered and mangy Fluttershy. She cackled horribly and stabbed him in the stomach. He howled in pain. Suddenly the blood-caked pony remembered her friend Pinkie Pie and grinned at the terrified foal. She sliced off a large patch of skin on his left leg and flank, cutting off his cutie mark. She did the same to the right, leaving his burnt calves to bleed themselves until they were useless. The little Pegasus' eyes filled with tears of pain and fear of the bloody Pegasus in front of him. Fluttershy scowled at his tears and jabbed one of her razor-sharp knives into his stomach, swiftly pulling out of the blade. The foam moaned and fluttered as his heavy eyelids, nearly passing out from blood loss. The stomach blood filled the killer pony's mouth, and she gurgled the blood in her burning throat. Finally she swallowed the blood, both a mixture of hot and cold, fear, love, and sorrow. A flavor she had never tasted before, and she enjoyed it. Every last blood drop she savored to the little boy pony's terror. His large and small intestines stuck out of his stomach, and Fluttershy wrenched them out of place with her knife. She wrapped them around her neck, and the boy fainted. After minutes of stabbing and death threats, mostly of
"I'll kill you,
and
we're the best of friends there is,"
he stopped moving. His slight jaw gapped open, dripping with blood. The once yellow Pegasus removed a blood-caked rope from her pouch, tying it around the mare's neck and then hers, creating a tight chain necklace.
"Our friendship necklace."
Fluttershy smirked and dragged the corpse behind her, stuffing her knives and the boy's cutie marks and leg fur into her satchel. The moon was nowhere to be seen, covered in clouds. It was a dark night, lucky for the murderous Pegasus, unlucky for the townsfolk. She crept back to her home, gently opening the door and shutting it, laying down her killed animals. She was proud of herself. She killed a doe, 2 small bear cubs, 5 rabbits, and an unaccountable amount of rodents. She had even brought back a little mare for her collection. She smiled, tired and happy. Tomorrow she would stuff him and add him to her collection of stuffed animals. Fluttershy had seen Pinkie Pie drag around quite a number of life-sized dolls, one looking like an exact replica of Rainbow Dash. Though she hasn't seen Dashy since, she took in the idea of making her own stuffed animals, like replicas of her friends. Fabrics haven't worked. They had looked too fake for fur, and the hooves and wings looked more like plastic than they were supposed to. She had given up the idea until this night. Entering her room, Fluttershy flicked on the light. Dolls of all different kinds covered the room. Squirrels to bears, of course artificial. The dolls that Pinkie had given her looked like Berry Punch, one of the Wonderbolts, even one that looked exactly like Sweetie Belle, and a few more. The now calm pony smiled at the dolls. She liked living like this. Maybe she'll ask Pinkie how she made those dolls. Maybe.